महफिल का आगाज़ तिलावत कुरान मजीद फुरकान हमीद से किया जाएगा और उसके साथ ही मैं नहायत ही मोहतरम हज़रत अल्लामा हाफिज़ नूर मोहम्मद साहब से दरख्वास्त करूँगा कि वो कुरान मजीद फुरकान हमीद से आयात बायिनात की तिलावत भी फरमाएँ और चंद अशार पंजाबी के इस मुनासिबत से भी दरख्वास्त करूँगा पेश फरमाते हैं। तो अहबाब इत्मीनान से तशरीफ़ लाएं।
औज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम। बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। लक़द सदक़ल्लाहु रसूलहु रु'या बिल-हक़्क़ लतदख़ुलन्नल मस्जिदल हराम इंशाअल्लाहु आमीनीन मुहल्लिकीन रुऊसकुम व मुक़स्सिरीन ला तख़ाफ़ून फ़अलिम मा लम तअलमू फ़जअल मिन दूनि ज़ालिका फ़तहन क़रीबा हुवल्लज़ी अरसल रसूलहु बिल-हुदा व दीनिल हक़्क़ि लियुज़हिरहु अलad-दीनि कुल्लिहि व कफ़ा बिल्लाहि शहीदा। मुहम्मदुर रसूलुल्लाह वल्लज़ीन मअहु अशिद्दाउ अलल कुफ़्फ़ारि रुहमाउ बैनहुम तराहुम रुक्कअन सुज्जदन यब्तगूना फ़ज़लन मिनल्लाहि व रिज़वाना सीमाहुम फ़ी वुजूहिहिम मिन असरिस सुजूद ज़ालिका मसलुहुम फ़ित-तौराति व मसलुहुम फ़िल-इंजील कज़रइन अख़रज शतअहु फ़आज़रहु फ़ास्तग़लज़ फ़ास्तवى अला सूक़िहि यु'जिबु الزُّرَّاءَ لِيَغِيظَ بِهِمُ الْكُفَّارَ وعد الله الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات منهم مغفرة وأجرا عظيما صدق الله العظيم صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله وسلم عليك يا حبيب الله صلى الله सल्लल्लाहु अलैका या रसूल अल्लाह व सल्लम अलैका या नूर अल्लाह। मेरा दिल और मेरी जान मदीने वाले, मेरा दिल और मेरी जान मदीने वाले, तुझ पे सो जान से कुर्बान मदीने वाले। करूं तेरे नाम पे जान फिदा, ना बसे जान तो जान फिदा। करूं तेरे नाम पे जान फिदा, ना बसे जान तो जान फिदा। दो जान से भी नहीं जी बला, करूं क्या करोड़ों जाने। मेरा दिल और मेरी जान मदीने वाले। पर्दे पर्दे मेरे दाता, मेरी झोली भर दे। पर्दे पर्दे मेरे दाता, मेरी झोली भर दे। अपना रख बेसरो सामा मदीने वाले। वाह क्या जूदो करम है शाहे बत तेरा, नहीं सुनता ही नहीं मांगने वाला तेरा। सगता मुझे सब कह के पुकारे बेदम, यही रखे मेरी पहचान मदीने वाले।
इत्तेकादी हवाले से यानी अकीदे के हवाले से एक इंतहाई अहम बात है कि अक्सर ये सवाल किया जाता है कि हम ये महाफिल क्यों सजाते हैं, इसकी वजह क्या है, और फिर औलिया-उल्लाह के साथ जो हमारी अकीदत है और मोहब्बत है, इस पर इतराज़ किया जाता है और लोग ये पूछते हैं कि आपको औलिया-उल्लाह से इस कदर मोहब्बत क्यों है, और माअज़ल्लाह उसे फिर अल्लाह सुब्हानहु व तआला की मोहब्बत के मुकाबिल लाकर रखा जाता है और ऐसी ऐसी बातें कह दी जाती हैं कि آپ یقین نہیں کریں گے کہ انہی جو اللہ کے مقبول بندے ہیں انہی پر پھر وہ آیات فٹ کی جاتی ہیں کہ جو اللہ سبحانہ تعالیٰ نے مشرکین کو احکام بتائے ہیں اور جو ان کے لیے آیات نازل کی اور ان کے خود ساختہ خداؤں کے لیے جو اللہ سبحانہ تعالیٰ نے ارشادات نازل فرمائے وہ اللہ سبحانہ تعالیٰ کے مقرر بندوں پر فٹ کیے جاتے ہیں۔ حالانکہ حقیقت بات یہ ہے کہ نبی کریم رؤوف الرحیم صلی اللہ تعالیٰ علیہ وسلم کی ایک حدیث مبارکہ میں آپ کی خدمت میں پیش کرتا ہوں، اور اس سے ہمیں یہ معلوم ہوتا ہے کہ نبی کریم رؤوف الرحیم صلی اللہ تعالیٰ علیہ وسلم کی محبت اور وہ لوگ جو سرکار دو عالم صلی اللہ تعالیٰ علیہ وسلم سے محبت کرتے ہیں ان کی محبت یہ دراصل ایمان کی پہچان ہے۔ نعرہ تکبیر، نعرہ رسالت، نعرہ رسالت۔ میں عرض کر رہا تھا کہ اس حدیث مبارکہ سے ہمیں یہ بات پتہ چلتی ہے کہ سرکار دو عالم صلی اللہ تعالیٰ علیہ وسلم کی محبت اور ان لوگوں کی محبت جو سرکار مدینہ صلی اللہ تعالیٰ علیہ وسلم سے محبت کرتے ہیں یہ دراصل ایمان کی پہچان ہے اور مرض نفاق کا علاج ہے۔ یعنی اس سے یہ پتہ چلتا ہے کہ حقیقی مومن کون ہے اور جس کے ایمان میں گڑبڑ ہے وہ کون ہے۔ اور یہ محبت، ایک بات یہ بھی یاد رکھیں کہ یہ اللہ سبحانہ تعالیٰ کے دلوں میں ڈالنے سے یہ محبت دل میں پیدا ہوتی ہے، کسی کوشش کے ساتھ نہیں ہوتی۔ اسی لیے اللہ سبحانہ تعالیٰ ارشاد فرماتا ہے، بلکہ نبی کریم رؤوف الرحیم صلی اللہ تعالیٰ علیہ وسلم نے ارشاد فرمایا کہ جب اللہ سبحانہ تعالیٰ کسی سے محبت فرماتا ہے تو پھر جبریل امین علیہ السلام کو بلاتا ہے اور یہ کہتا ہے، یا جبریل انی احب فلاں، کہ اے جبریل میں فلاں شخص سے محبت کرتا ہوں، تو بھی اس سے محبت کر۔ اور پھر جبریل امین اس سے محبت کرنے لگتے ہیں، اور جب جبریل امین اس سے محبت کرتے ہیں تو پھر سماوی مخلوق میں یہ اعلان کرتے ہیں کہ اے فرشتوں، اے گروہ ملائکہ، اللہ سبحانہ تعالیٰ فلاں شخص سے محبت کرتا ہے، تم سب بھی اس سے محبت کرو۔ اور فرشتے جب اس سے محبت کرنے لگتے ہیں تو پھر تیسرا سٹیج یہ آتا ہے کہ پھر حدیث مبارکہ کے الفاظ ہیں فَيُودَعُ لَهُ الْقُبُولُ فِي الْأَرْضِ، کہ اللہ سبحانہ تعالیٰ اس کی مقبولیت اور اس کی محبت دنیا میں لوگوں کے دلوں میں ڈال دیتا ہے۔ اور اس کا پھر منظر ہم یہ دیکھتے ہیں کہ کسی بھی اللہ سبحانہ تعالیٰ کے مقبول بندے کے مزار پہ آپ چلے جائیں اور یہ آپ یوں بھی سمجھ لیں کہ یہ جو آیت مبارکہ ہے فَاذْكُرُونِي أَذْكُرْكُمْ، کہ تم مجھے یاد کرو میں تمہیں یاد کروں گا، یہ اس کا ہمیں ایک ظاہری نمونہ ہمیں نظر آتا ہے۔ داتا صاحب چلے جائیں اور کسی مزار پہ چلے جائیں تو دیکھیں کہ سارا دن، ساری رات، پورے سال میں آپ کو کوئی ایسا موقع نہیں ملے گا کہ وہاں کوئی آدمی بیٹھ کر پڑھ نہ رہا ہو، دعا نہ کر رہا ہو اور اشارے ثواب نہ کر رہا ہو۔ اور یہ محبت اللہ سبحانہ تعالیٰ دلوں میں ڈالتا ہے۔ جو حدیث مبارکہ میں پیش کرنے والا تھا اس میں ایک صحابی ہے حضرت حرملہ، وہ نبی کریم رؤوف الرحیم صلی اللہ تعالیٰ علیہ وسلم کی خدمت میں حاضر ہوتے ہیں اور عرض کرتے ہیں، یا رسول اللہ صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم، گویا کہ یوں عرض کرتے ہیں کہ پیارے آقا و مولا صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم، حرملہ منافق ہو گئے۔ یہ ذرا غور سے اور دھیان سے سنیے، حرملہ منافق ہو گئے۔ الایمان ہاہنا والنفاق ہاہنا، منہ کی طرف اشارہ کر کے زبان کی طرف کہتے ہیں کہ ایمان تو یہاں ہے، زبان سے اقرار ضرور ہے، والنفاق ہا ہونا، لیکن دل میں ابھی تک اس کے اثرات پیدا نہیں، ابھی دل تک نہیں پہنچا۔ کچھ دیر نبی کریم صلی اللہ تعالی علیہ وسلم نے خاموشی اختیار فرمائی تو دوبارہ ریکویسٹ کی، دوبارہ کہا یا رسول اللہ صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم الایمان ہا ہونا والنفاق ہا ہونا۔ اب نبی پاک صلی اللہ تعالی علیہ وسلم نے یہ نہیں فرمایا کہ مقلب القلوب اللہ سبحانہ تعالیٰ کی ذات ہے، اسے دعا کرو، یا یہاں سے آپ کو اور بہت سی حدیث مبارکہ کو جب حدیث مبارکہ کا آپ بغور مطالعہ کریں گے تو آپ دیکھیں گے کہ صحابہ کرام ہر قسم کی مشکل اور پریشانی لے کر نبی کریم صلی اللہ تعالی علیہ وسلم کی بارگاہ میں حاضر ہوا کرتے۔ کسی کا بال کٹ گیا تو وہ بھی سرکار کی بارگاہ میں حاضر ہو رہا ہے بال پکڑے ہوئے، کسی کی آنکھ کا ڈیلا باہر نکل آیا وہ سرکار کی بارگاہ میں حاضر ہو رہا ہے، کسی نے جانور کا دودھ دونا ہے تو بھی سرکار کی بارگاہ میں اسے لایا جا رہا ہے۔ صبح صبح مدینہ منورہ کے چھوٹے چھوٹے بچے سخت سردی کے موسم میں بھی ٹھنڈا پانی لا رہے ہیں، فجر کی نماز کے بعد تو نبی کریم صلی اللہ تعالی علیہ وسلم سے درخواست کر رہے ہیں یا رسول اللہ اس میں اپنا بابرکت ہاتھ ڈال دیجیے، یہ پانی متبرک ہو جائے گا، ہم اس کو دن بھر استعمال کریں گے، بیماروں کو پلائیں گے۔ تو طرح طرح کی پریشانیاں سرکار مدینہ صلی اللہ تعالی علیہ وسلم کی بارگاہ میں صحابہ کرام لے کے آتے ہیں۔ اسی لیے امام اہل سنت نے بھی یہ جملہ اور یہ شعر ایسا خوبصورت آپ نے کہا کہ غمزدوں کو رضا مجدہ دیجے کہ ہے، کوئی غمزدہ ہے، کوئی بھی پریشانی ہے، غمزدوں کو رضا مجدہ دیجے کہ ہے، غمزدوں کو رضا مجدہ دیجے کہ ہے، غمزدوں کو رضا مجدہ دیجے کہ ہے، بے کسوں کا سہارا ہمارا نبی، بے کسوں کا سہارا ہمارا نبی۔ تو یہ حضرت حرملہ بھی یہ دل کی بیماری سرکار مدینہ صلی اللہ تعالی علیہ وسلم کی بارگاہ میں بیان فرماتے ہیں۔ دوسری دفعہ جب کہا تو سرکار مدینہ صلی اللہ تعالی علیہ وسلم نے آپ کی زبان کو دونوں انگلیوں کے درمیان پکڑ لی، زبان پکڑ کر سرکار مدینہ سرور قلب و سینہ صلی اللہ تعالی علیہ وسلم نے اللہ سبحانہ تعالیٰ کی بارگاہ میں دعا کی۔ وہ دعا کیا تھی؟ غور سے سنیے۔ نبی کریم صلی اللہ تعالی علیہ وسلم نے ارشاد فرمایا اللہم ارزقہ لسانا صادقا، کہ باری تعالیٰ اسے سچی زبان عطا فرما، وقلبا شاکرا، اور شکر کرنے والا دل عطا فرما، وارزقہ حبی، اور اسے میری محبت عطا فرما۔ صرف اس پر اکتفا نہیں، تو میں بات کہہ رہا تھا کہ سرکار مدینہ صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کی محبت اور جو آپ سے محبت کرتا ہے اس کی محبت، یہ ایمان کی علامت ہے۔ فرمایا وارزقہ حبی وحب من یحبنی، اسے میری بھی محبت عطا فرما اور ہر اس شخص کی محبت عطا فرما جو مجھ سے محبت کرتا ہے۔ پرابلم کیا تھی، تکلیف کیا تھی جو آپ کی خدمت میں پیش کی گئی، اور اس کا علاج کیا بتایا؟ سرکار مدینہ صلی اللہ تعالی علیہ وسلم نے جو اس کا علاج بتایا، اس سے یہ معلوم ہو گیا کہ جس کے دل میں سرکار کی محبت ہے اور وہ لوگ جو سرکار سے محبت کرتے ہیں ان کی محبت ہے، تو اس کے دل میں نفاق نہیں ہو سکتا۔ جو لوگ ان لوگوں سے عداوت رکھتے ہیں اور ایسے کاموں سے عداوت رکھتے ہیں، دانے کستے ہیں، باتیں بناتے ہیں، معلوم ہوتا ہے کہ دل میں کچھ خرابی ہے۔ اللہ سبحانہ وتعالیٰ ہمیں دل کی بیماریوں سے محفوظ رکھے، اور یعنی یہ جو اصل جو قلبی بیماری ہے، اللہ سبحانہ وتعالیٰ ہمیں اس سے حفاظت عطا فرمائے۔ میں از حد مشکور و ممنون ہوں ہمارے محترم مہمان حضرت علامہ حافظ محمد ارشد مصباحی صاحب دامت برکاتہ العالیہ، آپ نے ہماری دعوت کو قبول فرمایا اور اپنے قیمتی وقت سے آپ نکال کر تشریف لائے۔ اللہ سبحانہ تعالیٰ ان کا آنا ہم سب کے لیے باعث برکت اور سعادت بنائے، اور اللہ سبحانہ تعالیٰ اس کی نے بہترین جزا عطا فرمائے، اور ان کے علم و عمر میں اللہ سبحانہ تعالیٰ مزید برکتیں انہیں نصیب فرمائے۔ I'm going to move straight on to our guest speaker, and as I was just mentioning, first of all, I would like to thank him for accepting our invitation, and it was quite short notice as well, but for accepting our invitation and alhamdulillah ta'ala arriving promptly as promised, and for taking out this time from his valuable time to share with us and to share his thoughts with us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant him an abundance of reward on this, and also I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant him a lifetime of service of the deen of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And without any further ado, I'm going to request Allama Sahib to come and address you. I would like you to welcome our guest in a befitting manner, with responding to the Nara of Takbir and Risala in a befitting manner. Nara Takbir! Befitting manner. Nara Takbir! Nara Risalat! Nara Risalat! Ulama Ahl-Sunnah!
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidil anbiya'i wal mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in, amma ba'd. فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وأنتم الأعلون إن كنتم مؤمنين. صدق الله مولانا العظيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد معدن الجود والكرم وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله وعلى آلك وأصحابك يا سيدي يا رحمة للعالمين. الله رب محمد صلى عليه وسلم. نحن عباد محمد صلى عليه وسلم. سیدنا اعلی حضرت عظیم البرکت مجدد دین و ملت پروانہ شمع رسالت امام اہل سنت حامی سنت ماحی بدعت قاطع نجدیت الشاہ امام احمد رضا فاضل بریلوی رحمۃ اللہ تعالی علیہ in his world-renowned poetry in praise of Sarkar Ghaus-e-Azam, Sayudina Shaykh Muhyiddin Abdul Qadir Jilani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. A'la Hazrat says, واہ کیا مرتبہ اے غوث ہے بالا تیرا، واہ کیا مرتبہ اے غوث ہے بالا تیرا، اونچے اونچوں کے سروں سے قدم اعلیٰ تیرا، اونچے اونچوں کے سروں سے قدم اعلیٰ تیرا، اور سر بھلا کیا کوئی جانے کہ ہے کیسا تیرا. You are lovers of Ghaus-e-Azam? Are you all lovers of Ghaus-e-Azam? Why can't I hear Subhanallah? Nice and loud Subhanallah. Praise of our Ghaus, praise of our beloved Sarkar Ghaus-e-Pak A'la says, سر بھلا کیا کوئی جانے کہ ہے کیسا تیرا، اولیاء ملتے ہیں آنکھیں وہ ہے تلوہ تیرا، اولیاء ملتے ہیں قدمی ہادہی علی رقبت کل ولی اللہ. By the command of Allah, Ghaus-e-Azam said this on the minbar in Baghdad Sharif around 900 years ago. سر بھلا کیا کوئی جانے کہ ہے کیسا تیرا، اولیاء ملتے ہیں آنکھیں وہ ہے تلوہ تیرا. اور جو ولی قبل تھے، جو ولی قبل تھے یا بعد ہوئے یا ہوں گے، those who came before you, those who came after you, those who are still to come, جو ولی قبل تھے یا بعد ہوئے یا ہوں گے، سب ادب رکھتے ہیں دل میں میرے آقا تیرا، سب ادب رکھتے ہیں دل میں میرے آقا تیرا. اور سارے اقطاب جہاں کرتے ہیں کعبے کا طواف. All saints, all Sufis, all friends of Allah, all awliya Allah, all aqtab, they go and perform the tawaf of the Ka'batul Musharrafah. It makes sense. This is the dignity of the Kaaba. This is the izzat of the Kaaba. This is the honor of the Kaaba. It is the Baytullahil Haram. It is the center of the rahmat of Allah. Therefore every wali goes and pays homage to the Ka'batul Musharrafah, and they go and circumambulate the Ka'batul Musharrafah. But Ghaus-e-Azam is something else. Ghaus-e-Azam muqam and martaba, even amongst the aqtab and awliya, is very, very prominent and high. A'la Hazrat says, سارے اقطاب جہاں کرتے ہیں کعبے کا طواف. But when it comes to Ghaus-e-Azam, کعبہ کرتا ہے طواف درے والا تیرا، کعبہ کرتا ہے طواف درے والا تیرا. اور تو حسینی حسنی کیوں نہ محی الدین ہو، تو حسینی. This title is given to him by Allah. محی الدین, the one who revived the deen of Islam, the one who brought back the true teachings of Islam for the Muslims of his time. Allah says to Husayni from the father side, Hasani from mother side, Husayni. Tu Husayni Hasani kyun na Muhyiddin ho. खिजर मजमए बहरैन है चश्मा तेरा। ऐ खिजर मजमए बहरैन है चश्मा तेरा। और ऐ रजा यूं न बिलक, तू नहीं जय्यद तो न हो। दिस इज दी ह्यूमिलिटी, द आजिज़ी, द इंकिसारी ऑफ इमाम अहल-सुन्नह। इसे ऐ रजा यूं न बिलक, तू नहीं जय्यद तो न हो। सैयदे जय्यदे हर दहर है मौला तेरा। वाह क्या मर्तबा ऐ गौस है बाला तेरा। ऊंचे ऊंचों के सरों से कदम आला तेरा। अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह तबारक व तआला, by the grace and mercy of Allah, it's good to be back in this beautiful masjid. Beautiful muqtadis, beautiful imams, mashallah, beautiful gathering. 11वीं शरीफ, 11वीं शरीफ, as you all know, mashallah, is basically a gathering of Isal Sawab. That's the purpose why we congregate, brothers and sometimes sisters, come to the masjid, talk and learn about Islam, and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to convey the sawab, the reward of our good deeds, especially to Sarkar Gause Pak and all believers of the past. You know, sometimes in your streets of Rochdale, in Northwest, in England, you come across other Muslims who say, what is this? Every month you celebrate this gathering, what is there? You only go for the food, langar. What are you actually benefited? What's the result? What is the conclusion? What do you see from these gatherings? I'll tell you. Like Allama Sialvi Sahib was mentioning, to love the beloveds of Allah, to love the mahbubeen of Allah, to love the awliya Allah, to love the Ahle Bayt, to love the Sahaba, is in itself is a blessing of Allah upon us. You may say, what will you get from this gathering? Let me tell you. I have a book here in my hand. This was just passed on to me day before yesterday whilst I was lecturing in Blackburn. In this book, consisting of fatwa, a question is asked for alim of our Jamaat from Great Britain. His name is Allama Muhammad Arshad. The question is, I'll read it out to you in English, in Urdu. The question is, Hazrat, अस्सलामु अलैकुम, हमने सुना है कि जिसको कुतुबे ज़मान हजरत बायजीद बुस्तानी का नाम भी याद रहा वो भी जन्नती है। Are you with me? जिसको हजरत बायजीद बुस्तानी का नाम याद रहा वो भी जन्नती है। ये किस किताब में है, इसका हवाला चाहिए, मेहरबानी होगी। Allama Sahib replies, only one hawala from a beautiful book. He says, Qari Sahib, ये तहतावी अला दुर्रे मुख्तार में सफा 44 जिल्द अव्वल पर है। And who says this? ذكر الشعراني أن من عرف اسمه دخل الجنة. This is the result, this is the fruit of loving the awliya of Allah, the beloveds of Allah, the saints of Islam. Imam Abdul Wahab Sha'rani, who himself is a great Sufi, great scholar, great alim, great servant of Islam, he says, whoever knows the name of Hazrat Bayezid Bustami, he will go to Jannah. Just this mahabbat, Mahabbat of the Salihin, Mahabbat of the Atqiya, Mahabbat of the Awliya. If you truly have the love, because Allah, brothers, He is Rahim, Allah is Rahman, and Allah looks for excuses to forgive the ummah of His Habib. Allah looks for excuses. He wants to forgive us. And this could be one basic reason why He will forgive us, for we love those who loved Him. जिसको बायजीद बुस्तानी का नाम याद रहा, अगर वो भी जन्नत में जाएगा, तो जिसको सरकार गौस का याद नाम ना आया, वो भी जरूर जन्नत में जाएगा. This is the fruit. This is the benefit. This is the faida. This is the result of these gatherings. You know, the poet says, "Uhibbu salihina walastu minhum. La'alla Allah yarzuquni salaha." I love the pious. I love the friends of Allah. I love the salihin. I love the awliya. I love Ghaus Azam. I love Imam al-Ghazali. I love Sayudina Khalid. I love Fariduddin Masud Ganje Shakal. I love Mauliduddin Chishti Adnari. Even though I am not one of them, I love the friends of Allah, even though I am not one of them. But why do I love them? لَعَلَّ اللَّهَ يَرْزُقُنِي صَلَاحًا, with the hope that with their love, Allah will create some kind of salihiyat in myself as well. So loving the awliya, loving the friends of Allah, this is our qismat. This is our share, alhamdulillah, the share of the Sunni Islam. It comes our way. Allah has blessed us that when we hear the names of these Salihin and Atqiya, alhamdulillah, our hearts bow with respect. These were true servants of Islam. All their life, they learned and they spread the message of our deen. So there is barakah in these gatherings and in the true love for the friends of Allah. This is Imam Abdul Wahab Sha'rani. Another book I want to show you. Again, this was given to me day before yesterday. And I also mentioned this in my talk in Blackburn. Hazrat Shah Waliullah Muhaddis Dehlwi. Ulama know who I am speaking about. What a giant he is amongst the great scholars of Islam. Shah Waliullah Muhaddis Dehlwi, Rahmatullahi Ta'ala alayhi. He says, what are the barakat in even the names of the awliya Allah? Names. कहते हैं कि भाई 11वीं शरीफ में क्या रखा है, तुम्हें क्या मिलता है, सिर्फ लंगर के लिए जाते हो. वल्लाहि अज़म, अगर अल्लाह चाहेगा तो इस मजलिस की बुनियाद पर हमारी मग़फ़िरत फरमा देगा. औलिया के नाम में इतनी बरकत है, औलिया के नाम में इतनी तासीर अल्लाह ने रखी है. They are beloved of Allah. They please Allah. Allah is pleased with them. So when we have the true love for them, inshallah, you will see the results. Shah Waliullah Muhaddis Dehlwi says, मैंने अपने वालिद माजिद से सुना कि असहाबे कहफ के अस्मा के तवस्सुल से आदमी पानी में डूबने, जलने, गारतगरी, चोरी से महफूज अमन में रहता है. इनके नाम लेकर दुआ किया करें. असहाबे कहफ, tell me who are असहाबे कहफ? Awliya. Awliya of this ummah? No. Banu Israel, about 2000 years old. If this is the barakat of the names of Ashab Kahf, just the names, who's saying this? Shah Waliullah Muhammad Dehlwi. And he is that figure, brothers. Every sect of Muslim that we have, sadly, they all look up to him. They all honor him. They all accept him as an authority. He says just the names of the Ashab Kahf has this barakah. Shah Waliullah Muhaddis Dehlvi, and then Ala Hazrat Azimul Barakat, our beloved Imam, the Mujaddid, agreed upon by all the ulama of his time, of the East and the West. It wasn't only his murids who said, our Shaykh is a Mujaddid, like it happens nowadays, sadly. Ala Hazrat, all ulama of the Indian subcontinent, all ulama of the Arab world, unanimously said, the Mujaddid of our time is Imam Ahmad Raza Fazil Bareilly. Ala Hazrat Fazil Bareilly says, Ala Hazrat Fazil Bareilly says, listen to this. I'm telling you, brothers, please keep this in mind now. Because people make itraz upon us. The bad mazhabs, the bad aqidah, they're not happy with what you're doing now. To them, this is bidah, useless, waste of time. We are lovers, alhamdulillah. We have adab, we have ihtiram. And Allah says in the Quran, وَمَنْ يُعَزِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهَا مِنْ تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. Surah Hajj. Whoever loves, whoever shows adab, ihtiram, ta'zim, respect, honor for the signs of Allah, then that is a sign that that man truly has taqwa in the heart. If you truly have taqwa here, then you will love and you will make ta'zim of sha'airullah. And awliya kiram undoubtedly are sha'airullah. Awliya are sha'airullah. Ulama are sha'airullah. True khatims of Islam are sha'airullah. To have respect for them, Allah says, فَإِنَّهَا مِن تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. This is from the taqwa of the hearts. So, even their name, brothers, have so much barakat. Allah says, Fatawa Rizviya, Jild 9, page 132. फरमाते हैं कि asma means names. Asma-e महबूबाने खुदा अलैहिमुत्तहियत व सना से तवस्सुल और तबर्रुक बिलाशुबा महबूब व मंदूब है. Tawassul and tabarruk from the names of the beloved of Allah, it is Mahmud and Mandoob, it is liked and preferred. Just the names of the life of Ghaus Azam, the names of the life of Ghaus Azam radiyallahu ta'ala have these benefits. You make dua to Allah with their names, mentioning them. This is Mahmud and Mandoob. Highly recommended. Highly recommended that you pray to Allah through them, with their names, through their wasila. Allah accept this dua. Alhamdulillah, we have many proofs of tabarruk and tawassul, and you will learn inshallah. Allama asked me especially to speak of Sayudina Allahu Akbar Khalid Bin Waleed, Sayfullah al-Maslul, the one and only of his kind, Khalid Bin Waleed. He's a Sahabi of Rasul, Sahabi of Rasulullah. You know what a Sahabi is, brother? You know what the Aqidah of the AHL-US-SUNNAH wal Jama'ah is regarding the Sahaba? Sahaba are the mi'yar of Iman. They are the criterion. Today all Muslims say, we are on the haq, we are on the haq, we are on the haq. How do we know? What is the distinction? What is the pehchan? What is the identity? Allah says in the Quran, Aminu kama amanan nas. आप लोग बहुत खामोश हैं, मैं ऐसे तकलीफ नहीं कर सकता. मेरे लिए बड़ा मुश्किल होता है. I'm not used to it. Honestly, I'm not used to this. I want your involvement. I'm reading Quran, you're just sitting there. Say Subhanallah. Aminu kama amanan nas. Allah says, believe as the Sahaba believed. As Abu Bakr believed. As Umar believed. As Usman believed. As Ali believed. As the Ashra Mubashara believed. As the Ashab Badr believed. As the Ashab Uhud believed. Believe as Khalid Ibn Waleed believed. That's the criterion of Iman. That's the criterion of Iman. You want to know whether you are on haq or batil? Is your Iman according to the Iman of the Sahaba? We can challenge the world, alhamdulillah. Our Iman is in accordance to the Iman of the Sahaba. Alhamdulillah. From Quran and Hadith, our ulama can prove. I am just a student of Deen. Our ulama can prove, alhamdulillah. Our Aqidah is the Aqidah of Khalid Bin Waleed. Our Aqidah is the Aqidah of all the Sahaba Ikram. Because Sahaba are stars of guidance. Stars of guidance. Ashabi kan nujum. Fabi'ayyihim iqtadaytum ihtadaytum. Our Nabi says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all my Sahaba are the stars of guidance. Every single Sahabi from the top, and we know who the top is. There's no debate about the top in the AHL-US-SUNNAH wal Jama'ah. दूसरे में होगा, हमें नहीं है. We know the top one is Abu Bakr Siddiq. Abu Bakr Siddiq is the greatest Sahabi of Rasulullah. Afdalul khalq ba'da al-anbiya bil-tahqiq, Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq. Right at the top of the list. In every aspect, in every respect, Abu Bakr is at number one. Then Umar, then Uthman, then Ali. All Sahaba, Ashabi kan nujum. فَبِأَيِّهِمْ اِقْتَضَيْتُمْ اِهْتَدَيْتُمْ. All of them are stars of guidance. Whichever one of them you follow, he or she will lead you to nothing but hidayat. Guidance. Because they are direct students. Directly taught by, nurtured by none other than the best of creation, Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All Sahaba radiyallahu anhum wa radu anhu. Allah says, this is the verdict of Allah in the Quran regarding all the Sahaba. Allah is pleased with them and they are pleased with Allah. You see, anyone, doesn't matter who he is, has the slightest disrespect for any Sahabi. He could be anything but a Sunni. Sunnis don't question this. Sunnis don't question this. We have been forbidden, it has been made forbidden by Quran and Hadith that you question the amal of the Sahaba. Who are you to judge the Sahaba? When Allah has judged them, when Rasulullah has judged them, when Allah has promised them, وَكُلًّا وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الْحُسْنَى. You know better than Allah? Allah says every single one of them. Every single one of them, Allah says, وَكُلًّا وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الْحُسْنَى. Allah has promised them Jannah. Allah says this in the Quran, explicit words of the Quran. Sahaba are the mi'yar of your Iman. You have to base your Iman on the Iman of the Sahaba to be on the right path. فَإِنْ آمَنُوا بِمِثْلِ مَا آمَنْتُمْ بِهِ فَقَدْ اهْتَدَوْا. Allah says in the Quran, if you believe as the Sahaba believe, then indeed you are on the right path. MashaAllah, it's good to see in this gathering. We want to speak about one great Sahabi. One great Sahabi, Khalid Bin Waleed. Allahu Akbar, what a giant. What a man. Allahu Akbar, Sahaba. You don't see the likes of Khalid Bin Waleed every day. Even Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala, he says, women will no longer give birth to the likes of Khalid Bin Waleed. Unique, outstanding, matchless. In many ways, Sayudina Khalid Bin Waleed. Even before he accepted Islam, he was born in the year 592 and he passed away in 642 in Homs in Syria. Only 50 years old. He accepted Islam in 629, just 3 years before the Prophet's demise. Even before he accepted Islam, radiyallahu ta'ala, the Prophet used to say to his brother, who had already become a Muslim, Walid ibn Waleed, one of his brothers called Walid ibn, the Prophet used to say to him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a man like Khalid can't keep himself away from Islam for long. Allahu Akbar. Look at the knowledge of Rasulullah. The Rasulullah, Prophet ﷺ knew sooner or later Khalid will come into the folds of Islam. He will be blessed with Islam. Islam will honor him. Islam will give him his son. Khalid accepted Islam, radiyallahu ta'ala. He came from the Khuza'a clan, from the tribe of Quraysh, same tribe as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And his tribe was especially known for warfare, for battle, for fighting. They were warriors. They loved to fight. Khalid ibn Waleed radiyallahu, even exceptional in his own clan. Allahu Akbar. He accepts Islam, and he is that man radiyallahu ta'ala who fought more or less 100 battles. Think about it. 100 big, small skirmishes, major battles, about 50 major battles Khalid participated. And his muqam status is such that out of those 100 that he participated in, he never ever lost. Think about this. Warfare abilities, his leadership, his ability to know the tactics of warfare, never lost. Even when he fought against the Muslims in the battle of Uhud. In the battle of Uhud, the great damage that came to the believers was because of Khalid ibn Waleed. He wasn't a believer at that time. But the great loss that Muslims suffered, Sahaba suffered, was because of Khalid ibn Waleed. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honored him, gave him izzat of Islam. Allahu Akbar. Many great battles. From the time he accepted Islam to the 3 years in the Prophet's life, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he led, commander-in-chief in all the battles. The Prophet appointed him as the commander-in-chief, great general, and then during the caliphate of Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala, 2.5 years more or less, all the expeditions Mujahideen went on. Khalid was the leader, especially against the Ridda, apostates. Many people, al-ayadu billah, claimed falsely that they were prophets even in the time of Rasulullah. We know our Nabi is Khatamun Nabiyyin. Our Nabi is undoubtedly the last and final messenger and Nabi of Allah. La Nabiyya Ba'di. He says there is absolutely no room for any Nabi to come after me. I am the absolute last Nabi of Allah. But even in the Prophet's life, the likes of Musaylama Kazzab, Tulayha, Sajjah, a woman, prophetess, woman claimed to be a Nabi. Nabi Astaghfirullah. Whereas every Nabi is only a man. Nubuwwat and Risalat is only for men. Allahu a'lamu haythu yaj'alu risalata. But a woman claimed to be a Nabi. Very soon after the Prophet's demise. And Sayudina Khalid bin Waleed radiyallahu ta'ala, in the battle of Yamama, as the commander-in-chief, as the general, subhanallah, Khalid fought against Musaylama and defeated his army by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I want to draw your attention here. Abhi maine aapko kaha na, Sahaba are what? Meyar of Iman. They are Meyar of Iman. During the battle of Yamama, the Sahaba decided between themselves, how do we recognize who's on our side and who's the opposition? Because in those times, one-to-one fighting on the battlefield. How do you know who's on your side? You got, say, 2,000 people. How do you distinguish between yours and the enemy? Sahaba came up with this idea that we will make our shi'ar, our identity, our pahchan, what? The nara, Ya Muhammada. Nahi samjhe aap? Nahi samjhe? Ya Muhammada. This was the agreement, unanimous agreement of all the Sahaba on the battle of Yamama. Those who say Ya Muhammada are on our side. Those who don't say are the enemies and are the dushman. So who says Ya Muhammada today? Who believes in the acceptability of saying Ya Muhammada or Ya Rasulullah? This is your masjid, mashallah, I'm sure you've written it there. Ya Muhammad. You go to every other mosque, do they always say Ya Muhammad? No. Only that. Ya Allah. Sahaba used to say Ya Muhammadah, Ya Rasulullah. Exactly. Okay, so this is Aqidah of Sahaba. Istighasa. Calling upon help. For help from the beloved of Allah. Isti'anat, istimdad. This is the practice of the Sahaba Kiram. Did the Prophet ﷺ not teach us? When you are lost in a jungle, in a desert, nobody to guide you, nobody should lead you. What do? The Prophet himself says, say, Ya ibadallahi aminuni. Oh servants of Allah, come to my help. The Prophet is teaching us, call upon the friends of Allah. Allah has appointed such servants and servants who will lead you to your path. Allah ke bando, meri madad ko pahuncho. This is the teaching of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this is what the Sahaba practiced, brothers. In the battle of Yamama, our shi'ar will be Ya Muhammadah. Mangenge. That's why Allah says, Mangenge, mange jayenge, muh mangi payenge. Mangenge, मांगेंगे मांगे जाएंगे मुंह मांगी पाएंगे. वाई सरकार में न ला है न हाजत अगर की है. सरकार में न ला है न हाजत. वाह क्या जूद व करम है. शाहे बतहा तेरा नहीं सुनता ही नहीं मांगने वाला तेरा. You know what Aisha Siddiqa says? Allahu Akbar. Aisha Siddiqa, our mother, beloved wife of Rasulullah, she says in one of her couplets that if it wasn't for tashahhud, Hazrat knows this, Allama Sahib knows this is for you. Aisha Siddiqa radiyallahu ta'ala anha, one of the greatest or probably the greatest alima of this ummah. Nobody knows Islam amongst the women more than her. That's my guarantee standing in the masjid. The Prophet said, take 2/3 of your deen from Aisha, Humaira. The Prophet said, take 2/3 of your deen from this Humaira. Out of love, the Prophet used to call her Humaira. Hota hai na Miyan Bibi mein, that's it. Subhanallah. Aisha says, radiyallahu ta'ala anha, لَوْلَا التَّشَهُّدْ لَمْ تُسْمَعْ لَهُ لَا لَا. If it wasn't for the tashahhud, la ilaha illallah. If it wasn't for the tashahhud, nobody would have ever heard the Prophet say la. Because there was no la. Whatever you ask for, the Prophet gives. There was no la. मालिके कौनैन है, वो पास कुछ रखते नहीं, दो जहां की नेमतें हैं उनके खाली हाथ में. जी, that's our Nabi alayhi salatu wassalam. So brothers, I was telling you, try to understand this point. Sahaba are meyar of iman. Accept it? Quran says this. And then Sahaba we learn in the battle of Yamama. Even Hafiz ibn Kasir mentions this. Ibn Asir mentions this. That in the battle of Yamama, the shi'ar of the Sahaba was the words or the call, Ya Muhammadah. So who believes in that practice today? Alhamdulillah, we believe. Alhamdulillah, we believe. So that's one beautiful message for us from the life of Sayudina Khalid Bin Waleed radiyallahu ta'ala. In the battle of Muta, subhanallah. You know, just last month I was in Baghdad Sharif. Then I visited Masjid Aqsa Sharif. Then we went to the Muqam of Muta in Jordan. Allahu Akbar. 3,000 Sahaba. Only 3,000 Sahaba against the superpower of the time. The Byzantine Empire, Persian Empire. And their army numbered 200,000. 3,000 against 200,000. And when the Prophet ﷺ set off these mujahideen to fight, the Prophet said, your leader will be Sayyidina Zayd ibn Harisa radiyallahu ta'ala. And if he is killed, if he is martyred, the Prophet says, your leader will be Sayyidina Ja'far Tayyar. Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, the brother of Sayyidina Ali Murtaza. And if he is killed, the Prophet said, your leader will be Hazrat Abdullah ibn Rawaha. And if he is also killed, then you will appoint your leader between yourselves. All these three great Sahaba, Hazrat Abdullah ibn Rawaha, Hazrat Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, and Hazrat Zayd ibn Harisa, by the grace of Allah, will of Allah, they were all martyred. And then the Sahaba accepted unanimously their leader to be Sayyidina Khalid bin Waleed. 3,000 against 200,000. Superpower. Allahu Akbar. Allah says in the Quran, in the ayah that I recited, in complete ayah, وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ إِن كُنْتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. You shall be the greatest. You shall be the dominant. You shall be the highest. But the only price you have to pay, the only requirement from your side is Iman. You shall be the greatest if you are true believers. Allah translates this verse as, और तुम ही गालिब आओगे अगर ईमान रखते हो. Tell me now, during the caliphate of Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq, were Muslims not ghalib? During the caliphate of Umar, were Muslims not ghalib? Caliphate of Usman, were Muslims not ghalib? Caliphate of Ali, were Muslims not ghalib? That means they all had perfect Iman. Because Allah is saying, if you have complete Iman, وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ, you shall be the highest. You shall be the leaders. You shall be the rulers. You see why we're suffering in the world today? Allahu Akbar reminds me. Khalid bin Waleed, subhanallah, what a warrior. What a mujahid. Allahu Akbar. When he was about to pass away, lying in his bed, because he always desired to be killed on the battlefield. Not like chicken, like us. They were Muslims like we Muslims are today. They were warriors. They loved it there. They loved to fight in the way of Allah. They knew the barakat and fuyuz of being killed in the way of Allah. Khalid Bin Waleed, once is lying down and about to pass away, he's very upset. He's very hurt. He says, he laments. He says, all my life I have fought battles upon battles upon battles. He says, there's not an inch on my body, not a spot on my body where there is no scar or wound. But here I am, lying and dying in my bed. His wife consoles him, gives him tasalli. She says, Hazrat, don't you know, Rasulullah said, you are Saifullah. You are the sword of Allah, the naked sword of Allah, the drawn sword of Allah. And swords are not to be broken. That's why you don't die as a martyr, you die as a conqueror. Saifullah al-Maslul, Allah Akbar, going back to Battle of Muta. Khalid ibn Waleed says, just imagine how this man fought. He says, I broke 9 swords in the Battle of Tabuk. 9 swords, Sayudina Khalid bin Waleed. He fought so bravely, so fiercely. 9 swords, one after another, were broken by Sayyidina Khalid bin Waleed in the Battle of Muta. Great, great Sahabi. Beautiful lessons for us in his life. And I just told you, he never lost. In one battle, whilst he was fighting, his amama sharif, his topi sharif, whatever he was wearing, his coat, it fell to the ground. Now Khalid, a warrior like him, intelligent person, known for his experience, but instead of continuing to fight and saving his life and killing the army, the opposition, he looks for his khawf. He looks for his amama sharif, his topi sharif. And people ask him later, what were you doing? Unexpected. He says, don't you know? I had some blessed hair of the Prophet in my hand. Those hairs, those mu'e mubarak are more precious than my life. I did not want anybody to trample upon them. It would be adabi of the part of the jism of Rasulullah. Tabarruk. Sahabi is teaching you of the importance of seeking tabarruk from the relics of the Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So again you learn this. And who are I of tabarruk today? Tell me. Who has these gatherings, mashallah, and they make display ziyarat of the blessed word of Rasulullah with Jamaat. Our Jamaat, alhamdulillah. Tabarruk. And who told us that? Sahaba told us that. Khalid ibn Waleed told us that. The importance of tabarruk from the relics, from the ma'asir of Aqa alayhi salatu wasalam or any other great servant of deen. So alhamdulillah, it's an honor and a privilege to be speaking about this great, great hero of Islam. And we have to tell our youngsters, they are our heroes. These are our heroes. The lives of Khalid ibn Waleed, the lives of Ghaus Azam, the lives of Data Ganj Bakhsh Ujberi, all the Sahaba, all the Ahl Bayt, all the Awliya, they are our heroes. They are our role models. We should be following in their footsteps. Khalid ibn Waleed is that warrior about whom even a Western historian, whose name is Edward Gibbon, 19th century, he writes, the fiercest and most successful of the Arabian warriors, Khalid ibn Waleed, the most successful. Rasulullah gave him this dua that you are the sword of Allah. Saykum min suyufillah. Alhamdulillah, may Allah reward us with his fuyuz and barakat. And may Allah make our hajj in the hereafter, the jama'at of Sayyidina Khalid ibn Waleed, with the jama'at of Sarkar Ghaus Azam, radiyallahu ta'ala, wa akhiru da'wana, and alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Alhamdulillah, you heard some most inspirational words. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all the tawfiq and ability to understand and to act upon what we have learned and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept this effort from Allama Sahib and grant him abundant reward upon it. This gathering is the second of our gatherings, alhamdulillah ta'ala, since the Gyalmi programs have restarted. And alhamdulillah, one thing I will say is that you only need to look around you to see the barakat and the blessings of the Gyalmi of Allah. Now, had it not been for this program, for this event, how many of us could actually say that we would have devoted this time between Asr and Maghrib to be in the masjid, to be in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to be listening to words about those who are beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is in part an enactment of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructs us to do. وَكُونُوا مَعَ الصَّادِقِينَ, and be with the truthful. And this is a manner of being with the truthful, is remembering them and actually trying to learn from their lives and taking wisdom from that. And there were two, originally, because of the timing, we were only able to sort of talk about one particular personality. In my mind, there were two people who have passed away this month. One was Sayudina Khalid Bin Waleed radiallahu ta'ala, regarding whom you heard a very thorough and extensive discourse. And the other was Shaykh Sultan Ibrahim bin Adham. He's also one of the great Sufis. He's someone who was born in the year 100 after Hijrah. And he passed away around 170 after Hijrah. This is how close he was to the Prophet ﷺ in terms of time. And he is one of the founders of this concept of tasawwuf. He was the king of Balkh in modern Afghanistan. A king, living in absolute splendor and majesty. And one night, he heard someone on the roof of his palace. And he called out to check who it was. And someone responded by saying that I'm here, I'm looking for my camel, I've lost my camel. He said, I don't think you've lost your camel, you may have lost your mind. How do you expect to find your camel on my rooftop? And whoever this was, this person, he said to him, he said, Ibrahim, you think I have lost my mind because I'm looking for my camel on your rooftop, and yet you are sleeping in silk garments, you're living a life of splendor and comfort, and yet you wish to seek and to find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How are you going to find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala living in this splendor? He gave up his kingship, his sovereignty. Eventually what happened, he left his palace, he went out. It's a long story. He went out, and whilst he was hunting, he had some other advice. He was even approached by Sayyidina Khizr alayhi salam. Shaykh Fariduddin Attar rahimahullah ta'ala, he narrates all of this. And he says eventually he went out into the jungle and he saw one of his own slaves. He was dressed in rags. And at that moment he was ready to give up everything. He took off his clothes woven out of gold thread. He took off everything and he gave them to this slave, this servant. And he took his rags and he adorned those rags. And he set off on foot, traveling for years, earning his keep with his hands. And not only for himself but feeding others. He eventually settled in Makkah. When he left behind an infant, a young child, who was being nursed by his mother at the time. And Shaykh Fariduddin Attar, rahimahullah ta'ala, he narrates that this child later, many years later, when he'd grown up, he asked his mother, he said, "Who's my father? What happened to my father?" She explained everything to him, so he went off in search of Sultan Ibrahim bin Adham in Makkah. He went to perform the pilgrimage. And when he went there, when he arrived there, this time round, Shaykh Ibrahim bin Adham, rahimahullah ta'ala, he had advised his companions. He now had a vast circle of companions around him, and he advised his companions. He said, there are people coming for the pilgrims. There will be women and children amongst them. Don't let your eyes wander. And yet when he saw this young man, this beautiful young man, he stopped in his tracks. He stood still. And he looked. And he couldn't take his eyes off him. Naturally, this bond and affinity between father and son, it took hold. And so his companions, they said to him, well, you advised us, you told us that there will be women and children present. You said, be mindful of your gaze. And yet you allowed your own gaze to wander. He said, did you actually see this? And they replied, yes. They said, we saw this. And so then he explained to them, he said, this is how I left my son. He was an infant at the time, and this is my son. And so they started digging around, they started getting information. One of them went to, he found where this caravan from Balkh was staying, and he questioned this young man. He said, who are you? Who's your father? He said, my father is Sultan Ibrahim bin Adham, king of Balkh. And when he realized this, he brought this young man, he grabbed hold of him, and he brought him to Shaykh Sultan Ibrahim bin Adham. And his mother followed suit. When he got there, they couldn't control themselves. They cried uncontrollably. And he took a hold of his son. Those of you who are parents, you will understand this pain. Having left him as an infant, and he's now a fully grown man. He took a hold of him and embraced him. Took him into his embrace. And he wishes to let go. But his son is holding him tight. He doesn't want to let go. He's met his father after so many years. And all of a sudden, the people are watching and they see that he begins to, his breath begins to shorten. And he starts to gasp. And eventually, he's gone. In the embrace of his father, he's dead. When asked about this, he said, as I embraced him, the love of my son started to take root in my heart. Started to grow firm in my heart. And I heard a calling from the divine, saying, Ibrahim, you claim to love me. You said you love only me. And yet this love of your son is taking root in your heart. And so I prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I said, oh Allah, if he lives, I will not be able to devote myself entirely to you. There's only two possible solutions. Either I die or he dies. One of us must go. And his death was an acceptance of my prayer. Why this sacrifice for the sake of the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And just one final anecdote from the life of Sayyidina Shaykh Sultan Ibrahim bin Adham. And then we shall have Maghrib Salah. Final short anecdote, which is that Shaykh Ibrahim bin Adham was told about a young boy who worshipped excessively, spent his nights awake worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he felt intrigued. He said, I must go and see this. I must go and find out who this young man is. I must find out about him. So he went and he investigated. He went, the young man requested, he said, why don't you stay a few days with me? So he stayed for 3 days. And in those 3 days, Shaykh Ibrahim bin Adham, he kept a very keen eye on this young man. And he managed to find out that this man, this young boy, this young man, rather, his means of sustenance was not entirely permissible, was not entirely halal. And for this reason he saw that much of his struggle at night, it was actually due to the shaitan and not out of the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so he said to him, come and stay with me. He invited him over and he stayed with him for 40 days. As he began to stay with him and his sustenance became pure and halal, this feeling that he had of the struggle at night, it vanished. He began to weep. He said, "What have you done to me? The struggle is gone, everything's gone, what have you done to me?" He said, "Now you have been nourished with halal food. Your sustenance is now entirely halal. I earned this with my hands, and I know it is pure and halal, and this is what I'm eating." And this is how he lived his entire life. He lived, earned from his hands, fed himself and fed others, leaving us an example of earning and surviving on a halal sustenance and the barakah and the blessings of this. Inshallah, we will include and we will have special dua and pay tribute to, in particular, to Ghaus al-Azam radiallahu ta'ala, and also these two huge personalities, Sayudina Khalid bin Waleed radiallahu ta'ala and Shaykh Sultan Ibrahim bin Adham radiallahu ta'ala, in the dua, concluding dua. Allama Sahib inshallah will make the concluding dua. If you can straighten your rows, inshallah, we'll have the azan and we'll have the concluding dua after Maghrib Salah.
I just want to say, because we spoke of a Sahabi today, Khalid Bin Waleed radiallahu ta'ala, this salam that we read about Ala Hazrat, it's about 170 couplets. One of those couplets is about Sahaba. About Sahaba. Collectively, Allah Hazrat says, جس مسلمان نے دیکھا انہیں ایک نظر. خالد بن ولید تو 3 سال دیکھے نا حالت اسلام میں, وہ تو بہت بڑے ہیں. جس مسلمان نے دیکھا انہیں ایک نظر, اس نظر کی بصارت پہ لاکھ نظر. Anybody who saw the Prophet as a Muslim, died as a Muslim for a split second, that person is a Sahabi. And no ghost, no kutub, no abdal, no wali is even equal to the dust that touches the feet of a Sahabi. Allah Ta'ala unke fiyuz wa barakat se hum sabko mala marhaman. Allah Ta'ala Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Maulana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa barik wa sallim. Allahumma rabbana taqabbal minna innaka antas samiul alim wa tub alayna innaka antat tawwabur rahim. Allah अपने फजल व करम से आज की हमारी इस मुबारक महफिल को कबूल फरमा ले. जो कलिमात तय्यबात तिलावत की सूरत में, नात शरीफ की सूरत में, बयान की सूरत में या अल्लाह अदा किए, तमाम का सवाब हमारी जानिब से हमारे आका और मौला हुजूर कुल्लू शाफिई यौम शुशूर सय्यदुना मुहम्मद रसूलुल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम पाक को हदियतन तोहफतन पेश करते हैं. अल्लाह से कबूल फरमाए. आपके वसीला जलीला से तमाम अंबिया किराम की मुक़द्दस बारगाहों पेश करते कबूल फरमाए. तमाम सहाबा किराम, तमाम अहले बैत अतहार, तमाम औलिया अतकिया सुलहा सालिहीन की बारगाहों पेश करते कबूल फरमाए. बिलखुसूस सैयदा हज़रत खालिद बिन वलीद रज़ियल्लाहु ताला की बारगाह पेश करते कबूल फरमाए. हज़रत सैयदना इब्राहीम बिन अदहम रज़ियल्लाहु ताला की बारगाह पेश करते कबूल फरमाए. सरकार गौस आज़म रज़ियल्लाहु ताला की बारगाह पेश करते कबूल फरमाए. इन तमाम के फयूज़ व बरक़ात से हम सबको माला माल फरमा. जिन अहबाब के लिए दुआ के लिए कहा गया, जो हमारी बहन इंतकाल कर गई हैं, जो हमारे 2 नौजवान हैलिफैक्स में इंतकाल कर गए, ब्रैडफोर्ड में गालिबन को इंतकाल कर, जितने भी अल्लाह हमारे मरहूमीन हैं सबकी मग़फ़िरत फरमा दे. या अल्लाह सबके दर्जात को बुलंदियां अता फरमा. सबके साथ अपने फज़्ल व करम व रहमत का मुआमला फरमा. या अल्लाह इस मस्जिद को क़यामत तक आबाद फरमा. यहाँ से सुन्नियत का काम जो हो रहा है या अल्लाह उसको कबूल फरमा ले. और बढ़ चढ़ के अल्लाह हमें तेरे दीन की खिदमत की तौफ़ीक़ और सआदत अता फरमा. हम सब की परेशानियों को दूर फरमा. हमारी मुश्किलात को आसान फरमा. हमारा जीना मरना सही मानों में या अल्लाह कुरान और सुन्नत के मुताबिक बना दे. हम सबको या अल्लाह अपनी हिफ्ज़ व अमानत अता फरमा. हमारे वालिदैन जो बाहयात हैं उन्हें उम्र खिज़र अता फरमा. हमें माँ बाप के कदमों में बैठने की तौफ़ीक़ अता फरमा. माँ बाप की खिदमत की सआदत नसीब फरमा. माँ बाप को खुश रखने की अल्लाह में तौफ़ीक़ अता फरमा. हज़रत के वालिद किराम बड़े जय्यद आलिम दीन थे, या अल्लाह उनके दर्जात को और बुलंदियां अता फरमा. उनके फ्यूज़ को आराम और ताम फरमा दे. हम सबको या अल्लाह अपनी हिफ्ज़ व अमानत अता फरमा. हमारी औलाद को हमारी आंखों की ठंडक बना दे. हमें अपने बाल बच्चों की सही इस्लामी तालीम और तरबियत का इस्तेमाल करने की तौफ़ीक़ अता फरमा. आलम इस्लाम का बोलबाला फरमा. जहाँ जहाँ मुसलमान परेशान है अल्लाह उनकी परेशानी को दूर फरमा. बिलखुसूस थर के मुसलमानों पे करम फरमा. वहाँ या अल्लाह अपनी बारान रहमत नाज़िल फरमा. या अल्लाह फ़लस्तीन के मुसलमानों पे करम फरमा. शाम के मुसलमानों पे करम फरमा. इराक़ के मुसलमानों पे करम फरमा. अफगानिस्तान और जहाँ जहाँ मुसलमान परेशानी अल्लाह उनकी परेशानी को दूर फरमा. पूरी मिल्लत इस्लामिया को इत्तेफाक और इत्तेहाद की दौलत से माला माल फरमा. ہم سب کے رزق، علم، عمل، تقوی، طہارت، جمال، کمال، اخلاص میں بے پایاں برکت عطا فرما۔ یا اللہ ہم سب کی نیک دعاؤں کو قبول فرما لے۔ سرکار غوث پاک رضی اللہ تعالیٰ کی فیض و برکات سے ہم سب کو مالا مال فرما۔ وصلی اللہ تعالیٰ علی خیر خلقہ ونور عرشہ سیدنا و مولانا محمد و آلہ و صحبہ اجمعین برحمتک یا ارحم الراحمین۔